We'll be going over a tutorial on how to use the IRS Offer in Compromise Pre-Qualifier tool. So this is a tool that is located on the IRS website. We'll put a link in the show notes on how to get to this. But if you're in a situation where you owe a significant amount of tax debt, you can't or you don't feel like you can qualify for an installment plan where you pay your tax bill a little bit each month until it's paid off, then you may consider an offer in compromise. So to do that, you would file IRS Form 656. You can see the link to the offer in compromise booklet on IRS Form 656-B. That is the taxpayer-facing form that the IRS requires you to use. IRS Form 656 is a standalone form that kind of looks like, it's actually within the 656B booklet, but this is the actual form, and at the very top it says, this is not a standalone form. It's intended for tax professional use only. Individuals requesting consideration of an offer must use the offer and compromise book. And we'll go through that in a separate video. But basically, you also have to complete what's known as a collection information statement. That's IRS Form 433-A. I'll put a link in the show notes to that. To resources we've created on how to complete that. But what the offer and compromise booklet does is it also contains a copy of 656, where you go through and you're officially declaring all of this stuff. Your assets, your income, your expenses, your basic information. Have you done all of the required things? All of that so that the IRS can consider your offer. But because there are so many people that have offers in compromise, the IRS has put together this pre-qualifier tool that allows you to just self-examine to see if they're even going to consider it. So they're going to ask you the same questions in this pre-qualifier tool as they do in the Form 656. And this is an opportunity for you to be honest in your self-assessment before you have to maybe share private information that you don't feel comfortable with in front of the IRS. So you get to use this on your own. The IRS website doesn't keep your information or anything like that, and it's completely anonymous. So I'll walk through this as an example so that you can kind of visualize, all of the things that you might be hesitant to do yourself. So the first part of this, the status section, basically talks about the status of your current tax situation. So before any offer in compromise or installment agreement, the IRS wants to get a understanding of, are you in the middle of bankruptcy proceedings? Have you filed every tax return that's required? And the reason why is because they don't even want to consider accepting an offer until they know everything's on the table. And if one of these questions is kind of still not being answered, the IRS won't agree to a deal with you when they know there might be more stuff coming down the line. So for example, an open bankruptcy proceeding, this would probably disqualify you from the offer in compromise until that proceeding has been at least closed and everything's officially declared. The filing all federal tax returns, again, the IRS doesn't want to commit to a deal if you're talking about settling previous year tax returns without knowing everything that's out there. So at the time of this recording, we're in February 2025, technically all required tax returns would be any return where we're past the due date. So 2023 would be considered a required federal tax return unless you're on one of the extensions for natural disasters that has a later due date. I believe some of them go as far as May 2025. But if you're on extension, that's not technically the required tax return. You filed the tax extension, and now that extended tax return is not a required one. But for example, in this example, I think we're using 2022 tax return as the offer and compromise tax year. So they want to make sure that you've either filed your federal tax return for 2023 or you're on extension before they agree to settle your 2022 stuff. Estimated tax payments, again, that's kind of in the same line of making sure that you're current on your or you're up to date on your current liabilities before we go back and reach an agreement on your past due stuff. And then in this case, if you're self-employed and you have employees, have you paid all the federal tax deposits? So in this situation, I put no, we're not in open bankruptcy. We have filed all the federal tax returns and we've made all the estimated tax payments, but the federal tax deposits doesn't apply. So basic info, basically your locality. So I live in Tampa. This happens to be my zip code. And then we have 4 members of our household. None of them are 65 or older. And we're talking about $25,000 worth of tax debt. And then the most recent tax year, as I mentioned, 2022. So bank balances, I put in $1,000 previously when I ran this on my own. I'm dropping down all of these figures that I had previously put in. So we don't really have home equity because we're underwater on our home, theoretically speaking. We have 1 car with $1,000 of equity. We have $1,000 in our retirement account. We don't have any other assets, no stocks, no bonds, nothing like that. So I'm going to hit the next button, which is right below. It's right there, just off screen. So now we're going to put in our gross wages. Let's just say we make $40,000 a year. We don't have any of this other income. So I zeroed all of these items out. But sometimes there are these blue items that you can highlight to get more information. That doesn't appear to be the case. I'm not sure why that font's different from the black up here. And then here, so you can see up at the top, we've gone through status, basic information like your locality, assets, income, expenses. And then once we enter all of this, we'll get to the proposal. So let's see, $2,000 of mortgage. We own 1 vehicle and we have a monthly payment of $300. Let's say $200 a month of operating costs, health insurance premiums. Let's say that's $200. Well, actually, let's bump that up. That's probably more realistic. $200 of life insurance, $400 a month in taxes. And then let's just say that we have another $100 of dependent care costs. So now we're going to get to our proposal. And it says that you do not qualify for an offer in compromise based on the information that you provided. You've reported expenses of $3,700. We've allowed expenses of $6,059. Your income shows that you can pay $33,000 a month and fully pay your liability. So obviously there's a mistake I made there. Let me go back and see if I can fix that mistake. So income, assets. So this is monthly household income, and I put in $40,000 of gross wages. So obviously that was that this is kind of an intended theoretical, right? So what I probably meant to say was whatever $40,000 a year is. So let's just call this $3,300 a month. That's a little bit closer. It's not exactly 40,000, but it's close enough. Now let's see if that changes the proposal. So in this case, it did change the proposal. It shows here's the tax debt, here's the available equity, monthly income, blah, blah, blah. Now it says you can pay $800 within 5 months, or you can pay $800 over a 6 to 24 month period. So that's your offer in compromise, and you can pick one of those offers when you go to this link right here. Basically, which is the same as this link. These are both links to the Form 656B book. So one thing that I would recommend is that you need to double check your figures to make sure that they line up, because the IRS, before they just hit the rubber stamp and say, yes, we approve of this, so they're gonna take your equity right here. This is how they calculate that you have $800 that you can pay. So if you're going to need to provide documentation that backs every one of these things up. So if you're putting in numbers to figure out like how you can game the system, just understand that the IRS isn't going to approve anything until you actually walk through step by step, provide documentation for every single thing. But this is a 5-minute assessment that you can do on your own just to see whether or not this is even feasible. Obviously, the first example I showed said, hey, the IRS would not allow this because you clearly have enough income if you're making $40,000 a month. But when we lowered it to $40,000 a year, then it's a little bit tighter, and the IRS is probably going to maybe claw back this $800 that they think you have equity in. And your remaining income, what the IRS has allowed in terms of monthly expenses, is $6,000. If you can demonstrate that, like, your expenses, even here, you're still claiming less than what the IRS would allow. We didn't even put in food, for example, right? So the IRS is saying we would allow you up to $6,000 of expenses and not take any of that out of your income. But then they look to both your income, what you can pay on a monthly basis, and then what your equity is. We put in $3,000 of equity based on your bank balance, based on your first vehicle, and based on your retirement account. The IRS basically says, yeah, we think we could take $800 of that, and we'll settle for that as your tax bill. So again, this is just a demonstration. You would have to actually go through the offer and compromise booklet. You're going to have to complete IRS form 433, which is this information statement. There are steps outlined here. There's an application fee. You would have to mail the application. And so the offer and compromise, this is what it looks like. You're going to have to send in documentation for every one of these things. And then the IRS will run kind of their own assessment just to make sure that everything is on the up and up before they officially approve your offer and compromise. So that's all we have for this video. As I mentioned, we'll put links in the show notes to at least the collection information statement and the article and video that we've done on those resources, as well as the link to this pre-qualifier tool. So if you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, or if there's another topic that you'd like to see in an upcoming video, please hit me up in the comments section. Thank you very much and have a great day.